Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and we're back with another Forbidden Music. And we're going back to the well for the most classic of forbidden songs and musics, namely the Beatles. It's always useful studying what the Beatles were doing, although the funny thing about it is the track that I'm about to show you is not on this album. And I believe this is the American version, but it's not on the British version either, because it's a single from these sessions. We're going to listen to the Beatles, or we're going to watch the Beatles on Meter, but then listen to little snippets of the Beatles doing We Can Work It Out. And that came from the Rubber Soul sessions. So technically what was going on in these sessions is this is around the time that the Beatles were starting to, get weird. They started to get more psychedelic here. It was on Revolver that they went fully into the She Said, and Tomorrow Never Knows zone, where they just went all in. But for here, those engineers could tell that they were getting a little frisky with something, but they weren't really sure what was up. I think it was actually Help where they started getting into that. But on this one, there are some technical choices that come to the front in a big way. The Rubber Soul sessions were where they started leaning really heavily into compression. And the engineering started stepping forwards. The engineering got more radical around Revolver. Revolver was when the EMI technicians learned how to close mic a kick drum on Tomorrow Never Knows, in fact. And that was unusual because the idea was, well, the kick drum is so loud that you can't put the condenser mic in front of it or you'll break it. So let's not. And a lot of drums were recorded with more distance that way, and that's a great sound. But Jeff Emmerich, for Tomorrow Never Knows, and that's after this song, mind you, but what pioneered for that studio, I think that some of the people in America were already knowing how to do this, honestly, but that was when he damped the heck out of the kick drum and then close mic'd it and got a sound out of that. So the thing about We Can Work It Out being a hot single from the Rubber Soul sessions is that it's starting to use those techniques, compressing stuff a lot. This was inspired by the Byrds, because the Byrds were operating around this time, and the Beatles were very aware of the fact that the Byrds were making really hot songs and sounded incredible, and were getting sounds off of their records that the Beatles were struggling to get. It's like, how are they getting the bass this strong? How are they getting? They would listen to things like Booker T and the MGs and go, how are they doing that? Our stuff doesn't do that. Our stuff's fine, but our stuff isn't hitting like that. And with Booker T and the MGs, part of the reason was arrangement, that there was very little going on. It was very well controlled. And so it was possible to just put everything extremely up front and be able to make it into a record without having weird peaks jumping out. Well, with the Byrds were running around doing things like running a compressor into the recording desk in order to get certain guitar sounds and things. And they were quite happy to do that on vocals and things as well. So you start seeing more in the way of the Beatles demanding that the Fairchild 670s that they had at the time were getting used aggressively. And so a lot of stuff stands out on this track that's not at all the same as what they were doing around like the day of Meet the Beatles or even the Beatles 65. This is a big jump forwards, and one of the things that you can see in the meter is that they are doing a dynamic. Their panning is very 60s. The panning is like all the basic tracks were bounced down to a single track which goes hard left, and then they've got vocals on hard right, and then they've got a harmonium, which is an acoustic instrument, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's probably what it is. It's a reed organ in the center. But the combination of these things gives you a cloud of peak energy that sits exactly where it's supposed to without pushing super hard. Like you can rock harder and push the cloud of peak energy up to where it just goes right up to the very top edge. This is slightly more relaxed, and so it's a less audibly challenging sound to hear. But also study what's going on in the highs. That second meter is the slew meter, and I'm building it into the ConsoleX2 that I'm coming up with. And watch what's happening with the slews. That meter gives you a spike when the high frequencies have gone seemingly too far. Certainly for a lush full frequency mid-70s mix, if you see the spikes in there, it means that the highs have gone too far. But this is a Beatles track from before Revolver even. And what you'll notice is that all of the sounds have this crisp clarity to them, and the high frequency spikes are very much in evidence. It's a bright track, and that's not so unusual for these 60s tracks. It's not that everything isn't always like super bandpassy and muffled in the 60s. This is a case where the recording, and they were pushing the engineers, they were pushing Jeff Emmerich for this stuff because, again, they were following the example of the Byrds, who were using heavy compression and getting a very glossy sound. And the Beatles were like, we're not going to take second place. We're the best band in the world. EMI people, make our stuff sound better than they were doing in LA around the same time. And they did their level best, and one of the things that happens is the frequency response is hyped up to where everything has great clarity to it. It's just that it's great clarity coming off of the old EMI Red desks. So not only is it, tape recorded and everything, not only is it before, I think this is before Dolby was really being a thing. Dolby hit around 1970, 1969, possibly a little earlier. I'm not sure this is really qualifying. And it does have a somewhat different sound than they were getting like for Pepper and Revolver and White Album. So noise reduction might have played a part in there. I don't know the details on that one. But pay attention to the clarity and brightness coming off of this track, because far from being compelled to not have the brightness go too far, it's what you do with it. It's how you handle it and how you balance it. And this is a good example of completely 60s sound. Like, it's not a 70s or 80s or post-80s sound. It's obviously a 60s sound, but it has plenty of brightness and clarity to it. It's just that this is what it sounds like when that era was producing this kind of frequency balance. And yeah, the metering behavior of this track just performs really well regardless. Like whether it's the peak or the slews or the zero crosses, it won't go down into the deep bass very much. Although they tried. I'm sure they tried. But everything is sort of everywhere all at once. There's always diversity and variety happening in the sound. Sounds happening quietly, sounds happening loudly, bright stuff, dark stuff. Everything is kind of there for you at any given moment. And that is the secret to being able to put up songs where you hear it for an instant and then you know, oh, okay, I'm going to continue to listen to this. Oh, okay, this is a hit. It's very possible to do that kind of thing. But the kind of equipment that you're working on and the choices that you make come through in that. And that's how you get that shock of recognition. That's how you get the guitars hit, you begin singing, and you just know like, oh, okay, I'm going to continue to listen to this one because it sounds like a hit record. Hit records measure a certain way. You've got certain behaviors that'll show up on them. And that's how you know. So I'll get back to work, but here is the forbidden music version with ContentID so that you don't get busted off of YouTube for it, and so I can show you how this stuff measures. And you'll even get to hear little glimpses of it. I think the little glimpses of it will be very clearly showing what I'm talking about. Like you can hear less of a second of a track like this and then know that it has what it takes. It's not like you have to study it for half a minute in order to know whether it seems like it has the juice. This one clearly has the juice. Talk to you later. Enjoy the Beatle track. We Can Work It Out.
Do I have to keep on while you knowing that I love work it out? You what you're saying, that it's alright. We can all say goodnight. We can work. It's very short. Sing and fighting. That it's a time. So again, my way. Only I'm wrong. There's a chance that we can work it out. And there's no time, my friend. I have always cried. I will ask you. Try to see, tell me right and right. Why do you see it your way?